Hey, how's it going, guys? Thanks for tuning into the channel. Today we're going to be talking all about the drip garden, and we're going to look at two questions. First, we're going to ask, what if I stopped compounding my garden? Would I be able to actually ROI? And the next thing we're going to look at is, how can I maximize my earnings in the drip ecosystem? We're going to look at a little strategy that I'm going to start employing to maximize my gains from the drip garden into the drip faucet and explain why this strategy makes sense. Stay tuned because I've got a great video for you guys. This is Into Crypto, a channel I started to share my journey into decentralized finance. Here you will get to see weekly videos of an average Joe investor, myself, start with a minimal amount of capital and attempt to make it big in the crypto space. I will show you everything that happens in my portfolio with full transparency, no matter how bad it may get. I should mention I am not a financial advisor and all my content is intended for entertainment and education only. You should always do your own research before making any investments. If you would like to join the Into Crypto community or you just want to learn more about the crypto space, please check out the links below. And while you're down there, hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Without further ado, let's get into crypto. Now I put together a few steps and I will be putting this slideshow in the description of this video, so feel free to check it out. You can go back if you get lost or you need to go over it again. The slides will be there for you. So the first step we're going to do is determine the rate of decay. Now we're going to use some analytics tools that have been provided by other community members, and those will also be linked in the description. The second step, we're going to find how many days it would take for our rate of decay to take us to a 0 LP per day production. And then once we have that, we're going to draw an LP triangle, and we're going to use this triangle with our rate of decay and the number of days to 0 production to calculate the total number of LP we will earn in that time. Now there is one assumption that we are going to make that does need to be discussed before we do these calculations, and that is that the rate of decay is linear. Now we know it isn't actually linear, and if we go to the graph we can see that it is very close to linear, but it's not quite. There's a small deviation here from what a straight line from this point down would be, but that's okay because it's actually going to be a very conservative estimate with our calculation. It's not going to be exact, but it'll give you a really good idea of close to what you'll be able to produce in the amount of time it would take for your daily LP production to reach 0. So the first step is to determine the rate of decay. And we can do this by using the equation for the slope of a line. And that equation is LP1 minus LP2 over time 1 minus time 2. Now, all of this information is actually given. If you don't understand what it means, let's take a look at the graph and I'll explain it right now. So LP1 and time 1 are going to be at this top point here. So you can see I've zoomed in. These are all areas where I have harvested, and you can see it's been a while since I've harvested, and we'll go into why this is, why I'm deciding to do this at the end of the video. But you kind of need a longer time span of not compounding. So you can see that I would compound and then I would harvest and compound, harvest. So what you want to do is zoom in on one of these longer areas, and it'll give you a pretty good idea. They're not all exactly the same slope. So like I said, this is going to be a very close estimate, but it's not going to be exact. The longer your time frame here between harvesting or between compounding, the more accurate your calculation will be. So I'm going to zoom in here and I'm going to look at this point right here. Now you see it, the right of the screen and at the bottom of the screen, those lines carry over and they give us 2 data points. So we have 1.760 LP, and we have a timestamp of March 31st at 0300. So if we come back here and we'll add that to our calculation, 1.76 and March 31st at 0300. So that's LP1 and time 1. Now let's grab LP2 and time 2. So now I'm going to go to the bottom of the line and I'm going to grab this data point, which is 1.610 LP, and that is the 2nd of April at 1700 hours. So now we will add that to our calculation. So we know This is easy up here. The top 1.76 minus 1.61 that is 0.15 LP. Now this here is a little bit trickier. You want to find the number of hours between 0300 on March 31st and 1700 on April 2nd, and that ends up being 63 hours. But we want to convert that to days because we want our rate of decay to be LP per day. So if we take 63 hours and we divide by the number of hours in a day, we do see that that is a total of 2.625 days. We put that in the denominator, and it is negative because technically April is larger than March. So when we do that calculation, we see that our rate of decay is negative 0.0571 LP per day. So now that we've calculated our rate of decay in LP per day, we can use that to find the number of days it would take for our LP production to reach 0 LP per day. This is done by taking the current amount of LP that you are producing. If we look at the analytics here, you can see that my daily production 1.432. So this is a little bit different than 1.462 because I made this slideshow yesterday and I'm recording it now. So my daily LP production is actually a little different than what you're seeing here because some time has gone by, and as we just saw, my LP is dropping by 0.057 LP per day. So I didn't change the slideshow before we did this, so I'm just going to leave it at 1.462 LP, and then we divide into that our production, or excuse me, we divide into that our decay rate, and when we do that we get 25.6 days. So yesterday, when my LP production was 1.462 LP, I had 25.6 days left until I reached 0 production. So now that we know the number of days it would take for us to reach a 0 LP per day production, let's move to step 3, which is drawing the LP triangle. Now if you don't understand what this means, I'm going to show you right now. So we'll start by drawing a triangle. And on that triangle, we will put the bottom left corner at the 0, 0 origin. Then we will add our daily production, our current daily production, to the y-axis, and we will add 25.6 days to the x-axis. Now, if we calculate the area of this triangle, the area will tell us how much LP we will produce in 25.6 days if we start at 1.462 LP per day and have a decay rate that we just calculated of 0.0571. So the area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height. So our base is going to be this 25.6 days, and our height is going to be 1.462. So if we do that, we get 18.7136 LP. So if I just let my garden run and I didn't harvest or compound, after 25.6 days, I would have about 18.7 LP to harvest. Now, like we discussed in the assumptions, this is based on a linear decay rate, which we know it's not. It's actually in our favor a little bit. So the decay rate's actually gonna curve out here a little bit. So it'll give us a few extra days, which will give us a little bit more LP. But this calculation is a very conservative estimate to the amount of LP you will be able to produce in that time at your current decay rate. So now that we see how to calculate the number of LP that we will be able to produce by the time we reach a 0 production, how can we figure out if we are going to ROI or not? Well, there's this great tool. I'll leave a link for this in the description. This is done by Crypto586. If you haven't used these tools, they're great. But if we enter in our wallet address and we apply it, it's not connecting to your wallet. It's just reading information on the blockchain. And we come down here. Now this is the statistics for my wallet. Now currently I'm 28% of an ROI. So when this reaches 100%, I will have got back all of the LP that I have deposited. But if we look here, I have 44 LP that I need to harvest before I will ROI. And as we just saw in the calculation, I'm only going to be making about 18.7 LP. So I don't think there is really a way for me to ROI in the garden. So I have to think about how to maximize my profits and get the most out of what I'm going to get from the garden. And I think that is done most easily by the strategy that I will talk about now. What I'm doing is, now that I know that I'm going to produce around 18.7 LP, is I am just going to let it run. I'm going to harvest as much LP as I can. And you might think, hey, why would he do that? Why would he let his garden go to 0? Well, think about this. The LP is half BUSD. So when the price of drip increases, only half of my LP is going to be affected by that price increase, and I'm not going to get the same benefit I would as if I harvested those LP and converted the BUSD half into drip. So my current strategy is to harvest as much of this LP as I can. I am no longer going to be compounding into the garden. I'm going to take all of my LP, I'm going to break the pair, and I'm going to convert all of the BUSD into drip, and I'm going to deposit it in the faucet. Now, this might not be beneficial for the drip garden, but it will be beneficial for the drip ecosystem, as I will be purchasing more drip using BUSD. And when the price of drip goes up, now instead of only half of my assets being affected by the price increase, I will be benefiting with all of my assets. The benefit there is much greater than leaving these LP in the garden and compounding into infinity. There's a much bigger benefit to harvesting these LP, breaking the pair, converting the BUSD to more drip, and depositing all of that into the faucet. So that's what I'm going to be doing, and that's why you see this long period on my chart where I have not compounded. Well, that's it for this video, guys. I really hope you were able to learn something that'll help you with your drip garden and drip faucet strategy. If you did enjoy the video, please give me a like and a subscribe, and join my Telegram group if you'd like to ask any questions. We've got a lot of great people in there. Farewell till next time.